Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of the Beyond Waste podcast. I'm Katie Coburn. I'm the Senior Director for Policy and Education at CIWM and CEI, and I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Bonnie G and Sarah Langmaid to discuss the resource workforce of the future. So we'll dive straight in, and I'll give you both an opportunity to introduce yourselves. If you can just give me a bit of an insight into what you do and why you're really passionate about skills and jobs in our sector. So I'll take Bonnie first.
So I'm a principal advisor at the Association for Public Service Excellence, or APSE for short, and I'm also on the Early Careers Ambassador team at CIWM. So that's another a role that I do as part of a team of ambassadors across the waste sector, across the country, hoping to encourage more young people to join the sector, engage with our younger members who are already here. And in my day job as an advisor, I work with local authorities. We're a not-for-profit networking organisation for local authorities, and I'm really keen to see more young people enter local government as a career as well. Thanks.
And thanks, Bonnie, and thanks for your time in volunteering for us. I think that's something really useful and helpful for us to move forward. Sarah, sorry, let's bring you in.
So I'm the Centre Manager for the Exeter Centre for Circular Economy, which is a research centre based at the University of Exeter Business School. We've got a strong cohort of researchers, about 30 in total, who are purely focused on circularity and embedding that into organisations. We also work with our undergraduate students and our postgraduate students as well, educating them about the circular economy. We feel that it's a really important area for people to actually be aware of and to be focused on with the changing regulation and guidelines that are coming through. We really need to be aware of this now and starting to train the future generation of leaders. So we're really passionate about it. We're working with the current leaders through our executive education work. But yeah, if we can start to train the leaders of tomorrow, that's really what we're thinking about now.
Thanks, Sarah. And that's actually quite aligned with what Bonnie was saying in terms of he's doing around our early careers work. So it sounds like we're going to have a really interesting discussion today. I was thinking about where we start this off, because it's such a complex subject. And I think for me, I'm really interested to understand what you think the challenges and opportunities are for us in understanding the growth that we need as an economy, but also as a sector, and how we can ensure we can be here and meet that growth with good people, with the right skills, in the right place at the right time. So challenges and opportunities. Let's pick up on that.
I'm happy to go first. I mean, we know that students and professionals are increasingly wanting to have sustainability focused careers, but from a circular economy perspective, we know that they're still poorly understood and often narrowly associated with waste and recycling, which we know, well, you and I know is not correct. Students of the future really, or the students of now, actually need diverse skills. We need to integrate circular and sustainability content across disciplines, not just focused on the technical side, but business, design, data science, policy. I think that that's really going to help us see growth in skills adoption. And I read recently that many young people and existing professionals feel under-equipped. One report found that only 20% of people feel ready for green roles. So that's quite worrying, really. But that's where education comes in. That's where we as universities or colleges can actually really have an impact to make a big difference. And in terms of the people that are in roles now, we could co-design executive education courses to fill specific gaps that businesses might have. I think we really need to be having these conversations and looking forward into the future and understanding what the needs are.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think talking about education being part of the solution is absolutely right. I think I've got a concern around whether or not we've got enough educators who have the right skills and training to be able to carry that forward. And I think that's another challenge for us that I'm sure we'll delve into as the discussion unfolds. Bonnie, what about you? Where do you think we are?
Yeah, I think the main challenge at the moment is, I think amongst young people, as Sarah said, there is a lot of passion and enthusiasm for sustainability and climate change, but we sometimes don't see that translate into waste and resources, the waste and resources sector. And of course, the circular economy is still a fairly relatively new term. I think it's not been embedded in the curriculum at school, and obviously university courses. It's great to see what you're doing, Sarah, over there in Exeter, but I think we need to see that across the board, and that's something as a CIWM team of ambassadors we are trying to go out there into universities as well. And I think the main challenges in terms of the workforce at the moment within the waste sector is actually very similar within the wider local government sector as well, in terms of I think we've seen an aging workforce. Over half of local authorities, we did a survey a couple of years ago, are facing challenges in terms of getting the staff in that's needed. I think that's reflected in the waste sector as well. And only 11% of staff across local authorities in this survey were between 18 and 27. So this is one of those things to raise awareness of the sector, that it really does make a difference for climate change and sustainability when you think of scope 3 emissions, and obviously using less in the first place is one of the most effective ways to tackle climate change, and other opportunities such as carbon capture as well to minimize climate change through through the handling of waste and processing and so on. It's just about raising awareness and making it attractive and tapping into that energy and enthusiasm that is going into sustainability and climate change and the climate emergency.
There's definitely a positioning piece for us, isn't there? Certainly as a waste and resources sector, as you say, circular economy is a reasonably newly understood concept, or certainly reasonably newly sort of taken seriously, particularly for UK government. But that positioning piece, I think, is going to be so critical. We did some research at CIWM back in 2023, looking at the skills needs for the future and actually what was the workforce going to look like going forward, part of the work with the Green Jobs Delivery Group. And as part of that research, we spoke to around 150 master's students, and none of them were interested at all in talking to us about waste and resource management, but they were all really keen to talk to us about climate change and circular economy and sustainability. And so for me, there's probably a language barrier as well in terms of what we're discussing and how we make sure we are engaging. But then I think you've got the flip side of that coin, which is the sort of geopolitical landscape and the reactions to environmental policy that we're seeing, particularly in the US and even here with things like reform, and being able to talk the right language to get people excited, particularly young people, but then also being able to make it really clear that this can be and should be a commercial operation for the business as well, and a commercial consideration is really important. How do you think we can tackle some of that?
I think commerciality is really important, and seeing circularity as actually creating value is hugely important. You know, that's the kind of line that we take in our executive education programs. It is about the creation of value. It's not, you know, it's not just about recycling, which is kind of what we come up against quite a lot. I think really, like you say, the language is really important, but it's also broadening the narrative. You know, how can we clarify how circularity applies across disciplines? We've got a need for people who understand it across business, you know, across design, across data, across engineering, across marketing and policy. And without joined up thinking, actually we'll still keep bumping into these older ways of looking at doing business. And actually we really need to be forward thinking. We need to be looking at upskilling our students, but also our professionals who are in post right now. I think that kind of like we need to be able to respond actually to policy shifts and industry demands like your report calls for. I think it's really important that we can do that. And in my mind, education really is an opportunity to fill that gap. We should be looking at seeing how we can turn policy into practice, and look at co-designing curriculum and reframing the narrative, and aligning education around circularity with young people's interest in sustainability, entrepreneurship and innovation. I think there's a lot of opportunity in this space, but the language that we use can be quite off-putting, or people just kind of go, oh, it's waste or it's recycling, I'm not interested. It's so much more than that. And I think that, you know, we just need to be having these types of conversations to highlight that.
Yeah, I suppose it's an evolutionary process almost in terms of that transition as we move the language on. You raise a really important point there, though, I think, Sarah, around the interconnectivity of it all, and actually how do we move to a more sort of industrial symbiosis model where we have different sectors working together to achieve circularity rather than working in silos. And are the government task forces that are developing the roadmaps that will take us there, and there's multiple roadmaps being developed by multiple different groups, are they all working in cohesion, and what does it mean if they aren't, and how do we tackle that? I mean, Bonnie, you do a lot of work with local government. There must be some nervousness there.
Yes, so you mentioned the word sort of working in silos, and we do see that often. Of course, climate change and net zero has been a hot topic. A lot of councils have declared climate emergencies and will have teams of officers working on that. But sometimes I've seen that they're not talking to their waste and recycling teams, that see that it's often seen as quite an operational sort of day-to-day kind of role, and it's about bringing them together to show that a good waste recycling program, the changes with simple recycling, and of course circular economy, reuse and repair schemes will have a real impact on their net zero targets and goals. And with the political changes, of course, that happened recently, it's actually an opportunity to really raise the profile, because I think waste recycling and obviously reuse schemes and so on are quite a tangible thing that people do like to talk about on the doorsteps. And if it's about framed from a point of view that will actually improve services, and just being, got common sense that people are going to be wasting less, and there's the wider social value benefits of reuse schemes, for example, then I think that can really help to shift that. The way it's been framed, and even around food waste, for example, that will be a requirement from next year as part of Simply Recycling. Of course, it's got great benefits in terms of reducing methane emissions, which is a greenhouse gas, and so on. But if that can be communicated around, recycling of food waste will mean that it will be a fertilizer on local farms, and we're going to capture the gas to that can heat homes locally rather than relying on gas imported from abroad. Then I think that's a really positive way of putting that out there, compared to just you have to recycle your food waste and it's seen as an inconvenience. And in the media, it's there's lots of newspaper headlines about slot buckets and so on. But if that can be shifted, and why it's a good thing that has to be done, then I think it can make a difference.
Yeah, and just staying on that point around change, do you feel that the sector is ready for these changes that are coming through? Do you feel like we have the right skill sets? And if not, what are the key skills that you think are missing?
I think there are huge skills that I needed. I think in terms of food waste, the AD capacity, anaerobic digestion, that's something that, of course, a lot of disposal authorities will be thinking about. That at this moment in time, do we have enough AD capacity? So there's a huge amount of infrastructure and lots of skilled jobs and green jobs to build those. We need people with all kinds of engineering backgrounds in order to do those. In terms of often amongst young people, there's a lot of talk of AI. Of course, we couldn't not have this conversation, not mention AI. Amongst some, it's seen as a kind of threat. It's going to take our jobs, but potentially. But I don't see it that way. It's an opportunity, because especially around sorting facilities at MRFs, materials recovery facilities, we've seen AI technologies used to sort waste using sort of robots and arms, and also in terms of scanning products, in terms of the sort of data analysis side of things. So we need programmers to go forward and do that. And going back to waste being a very practical role, AI cannot it will not take over the role of having a doorstep conversation with residents to ensure that they're doing the right thing in terms of recycling. And I think those are the kind of jobs within local government which are really needed to put that message out there, to communicate the importance of waste recycling in education, and that can't be done through AI on or online. That's very much in person, so they'll be here to stay.
It is, and what strikes me is that you began your response there talking very much about technical skills and the things that we're going to require in order to build and put in infrastructure like more AD capacity, but then very quickly moved on to lots of softer skills. And actually, even while you were talking about that, I was thinking, well, that's a lot of procurement. There's lots of tech stuff that sits behind this. And now we move into behavior change and communication and how we engage with people, such a mix of skill sets. Sarah, I wonder how, as an educationalist, you're thinking around how do we build programs that offer that mix of the two?
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? Because again, language comes up, and we kind of look at it and say, if we're going to keep calling this the waste sector, we're not going to attract the people that we need for the next economy that we need to kind of create. And in our minds, the skills gap isn't just about the technical, it's about that ability to think in systems. So, thinking about everything as a whole system, how does it work together? How do we collaborate? For people to have a commercial understanding of the need to adopt new types of business models, to collaborate across teams and across divisions, and actually really have a coherent narrative internally, but also to collaborate externally with your partners. I mean, you mentioned procurement there. They're a key enabling role, we think, along with like marketing and sales. How do marketeers and salespeople can actually educate people around sustainability and circularity, and they can help to spread that message. We do a lot of work with business through our research projects, and we had a large project funded called NICER, and we ran the Circular Economy Hub. And it was really important, actually, and it was really powerful and positive to see these organizations come together and to see how they really valued the opportunity to collaborate and to share their journey with us and with others, to share the challenges, but share the opportunities as well. And I think that that's really where we need to be focused. That's where we need to be going. We need to be looking at making training accessible for both the future and the current workforce. So it is this collaboration, I believe, between industry players, understanding the sector, understanding industry needs, and then working together to create educational courses that are going to help both, people who are in and doing the work now, for them to be able to transition and change their roles, but also for this, the next generation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's something in there around the simplicity needed in order for employers, and certainly recognizing, particularly waste and resource management sector, we have a number of large employers, very large blue chip employers, but then we also have a sector that is primarily made up of SMEs. And the smaller you get inside a business, the more difficult it can be to navigate an education system, navigate a funding system, understand how to train your staff, even understanding what competence looks like and what good looks like, and to think in terms of the future of your business and what might be coming and how it might be impacted. Do either of you have a view on how we can make the access to this type of training and learning and lifelong learning really as simple and consistent as possible?
Well, I mean, the government funded Help to Grow, which is a leadership program rolled out across multiple universities across the whole of the UK and Wales. Something like that really needs to happen. So funded training so that SMEs can actually come and be educated in this space and really get a good solid understanding of the changes that are coming and the needs, the pivoting that they're going to have to do to be able to continue to supply these larger organizations that already, are one step forward than they are on this learning journey. I really do think that, for them to have the financial support and for it to be easy for them to be able to access the training, I think that that's absolutely critical.
Yeah, I agree. I actually had a similar conversation at the Net Zero Week in Parliament recently, and that 2023 report I spoke about from CIWM called for a Green Skills Fund to help sort of pump prime that transition. And I still think absolutely we need to have accessible funded provision so that employers can ensure that their workforces, the workforces of today are ready, and of course the workforces of tomorrow. Bonnie, local authority, local government, I know training can be challenging. What's your take on this?
I think we're seeing quite a few things coming up around the country from a sort of resource efficiency and circular economy perspective around having things like reuse hubs. So here in just down the road from me in Greater Manchester is the Renew Hub. That's the biggest sort of its kind, where items that would normally have been disposed of or recycled at recycling centres are captured and then upcycled, repaired, and it creates a lot of upskilling because they have people, things like electricals, upholstery, and so on. And there's a lot of opportunities there for young people to be upskilled, and they do a lot of work with the community, which creates that kind of social value element as well. And I think in terms of the conversation going forward as well, it's about promoting those wider benefits, social value, upskilling, and also it will save money if you get changing behavior to buy used items first and going to the reused shops where these items are sold, or any other secondhand shops. Making that standard behavior needs to be the way forward in terms of that, that resource efficiency, and also from the point of view that it's not only an environmental thing, it will actually save money. And with the cost of living that everyone's talking about, I think that's the main thing. And in terms of councils as well, it will save their money if they invest a little bit in introducing these reuse hubs to their recycling centres. There'll be less potentially on disposal costs as well, with in terms of items that would otherwise have to be burnt or sent to specialist people to process them. If they're going to back into the community as they are, then that benefits them as well.
It's quite interesting. A higher education setting, you get, there's a quick turnover of students, and we definitely recognise that at Exeter. So we've introduced, we've launched a repair cafe recently, and we're introducing the ability for, I think it's gift it, reuse it, from students that move out of halls or who kind of like move on at the end of their third year, for them to be able to share the items that they've bought while they've been here with others. And it's fantastic to see that social side of things, the social impact. At the launch that we had of the repair cafe, the community enthusiasm was absolutely fantastic. It's brilliant to see that. And if you can, again, get students working with the local community, if you can give them those skills and then they take that forward, it's a really wonderful thing to see. And we're kind of going backwards. We're going back to where we were when our grandparents used to darn, and my mum used to darn our socks. That was just the way that it was. We make do and mend. We didn't buy new. We're a kind of throwaway society, and it is changing. It's changing that narrative and changing that habit, that behavior change, Katie, that you mentioned, which can be quite challenging. But actually, once you get to that tipping point where remanufacture, reuse, recycling actually becomes the norm, like, why would you buy a drill to just put up a wardrobe when you could go to a library of things and rent it for an afternoon? This should be the norm. Actually, that should be what we are saying is the norm, and actually to go out and buy should be something that is probably not encouraged and not looked upon very, very well by others, I would suggest.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, we're seeing quite a few libraries of things. There's one that's recently started in Manchester as well. And again, framing it from the point of view that why would you spend quite a lot on an item that you'll use only a couple of times a year, when it can be, you can rent it or maybe even borrow it for free, potentially in some cases. I'm not sure. Haven't used it yet myself, but that's probably more cost effective than buying it outright and only using it a couple of times, and then if you move house or you downsize or whatever, then having to get rid of it at the end. So that's important. And going back to changing people's mindsets to perhaps an earlier age, I'm sure in back then people would have borrowed it from a neighbor or friends and family as well.
Talking about young people, we've sort of the end of last year, start of this year, we began supporting an organisation called the Sustainables Academy, who wanted to run a competition in schools, and have a fantastic graphic design artist who created some really cool characters to try and engage sort of primary level students. And we've been providing resources and running a competition through that programme for the best part of this year, and it will run in, I think, to the end of the October term. And so far we've seen I think it's altogether around 8,000 downloads of that content, and that's from teachers who then of course pass that on to the 25-30 people in their classrooms. How important do you think it is that we capture people young? I know, Sarah, you're looking at tertiary education, but how important is the pipeline, and what impact does that have on the mindset?
Yeah, it's completely critical, and I love what you're doing with the Sustainables Academy. I think it's absolutely fantastic the work that they're doing there. So massive kudos to you for getting involved with that. I just see it. I've got an 11-year-old daughter, and I've brought her up, recycling, reusing, not buying plastic tat. It's really difficult as a parent when the children are, they're fed these views of things that they should buy, and it's all plastic and it's not recyclable, and it makes my heart really heavy and sad. So to be able to get their buy-in now, and for them to tell their parents, no, you shouldn't be throwing that away, you should be, no mummy, you're not buying the right thing, or you should be making more of an effort to recycle. I think that is, I think it's critical. And then they come with this open mind, they come with this general understanding of actually this is normal, this is what is expected. And then you can just start to build on that, rather than having to try to break old habits, which can take some time. Actually, you're creating that lovely smooth landing strip for these young people to have the right attitude and the right viewpoint from the very beginning. I think it's great, and I think it's what the Sustainable Academies is doing is massively important.
Yeah, that reminds me. I think it was led by school children, wasn't it? The campaign to get a certain fast food chain to not include plastic toys anymore, and I think they've changed to books, haven't they? And that was led by some school children who wrote to the CEO, and they got that changed. So that's a really different shift coming from the children themselves. In terms of local authority, a lot of them have education officers and teams that will go out to schools and deliver assemblies, because as I said at the start, it's not necessarily on the curriculum as it were, but often they will say council staff will go to schools and deliver assemblies to all age ranges, and the reception they get is great, and it really helps spread the message. They tell their parents not to do the wrong thing, what to put in their bin, and also they'll often do tours of the recycling plants and facilities. They've got education centres often built into them, some of the best ones, and then when they see it in person, they can really see this is where your waste ends up. When you throw something away, there is no away, this is where it goes, and then they can pass that on and then spread the message that way, and that's really effective. So we need to see more, I think, investment, and make sure that all local authorities and all schools have access to those kind of opportunities for education officers and to visit facilities like that.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And in terms of the work that the early careers team are doing, Bonnie, why don't you talk us through a little bit of the sort of plan for the next 12 months or so we can see how that has an impact and how we might further support that work?
Yeah, so yeah, we've got the ambassador team has a very diverse range of backgrounds. We've got some who are currently PhD students, one who teaches at university, and those was working in industry and in local authorities as well. So represent sort of many different sectors within the waste sector almost. And there is some work going on by the team at the moment to look at how we'll engage with young people at universities, go to careers fairs or deliver lectures, guest lectures and talks to really raise awareness, because as a background, you can have students of all kinds of subjects and topics take part, because there is no degree in waste management or recycling, but it cuts across so many areas. Not only environmental science, we need engineers, we need law as well, with all the legal changes that are going on. So our job is to raise awareness of that within the education sector. We're also contributing to the articles every month in the circular online, and hoping to maybe in the magazine as well, just to introduce us and talk about things that we're interested in and passionate about.
Amazing work, and it's great to have seen the evolution of that team over the last 8 to 12 months. It's been fantastic. And Sarah, I know that University of Exeter is also doing a lot of work looking at both supporting businesses and also people coming through the tertiary education route. Do you want to tell us a bit more?
Yeah, so we're passionate about embedding circularity across all of our programs. So we're currently looking at how we can embed circularity as part of the core of our undergraduate programs. We have embedded it in our MBA offer. So circularity is a core module of our MBA. And we run a corporate challenge as part of that. So we bring in business to bring real life experience to our students. They go through a really grueling education piece. So they join our Circular Economy Masterclass, which is a 6-week online training program, but it's about 6 hours a week as a minimum that they need to dedicate to learning about the circularity and engaging with a network of peers. And we give them that foundational knowledge, and then we take them through a design sprint and show them how they can go out and do research and actually understand challenges that organizations are facing. And then the final part of that module is to give them a real life challenge and say, right, you've got a week, go ahead, interview people, come up with a solution, and then you've got to present it to the client. And that is wonderful to see that evolution from the very beginning, where they're like, a lot of the students, they kind of know what the circular economy is, but not really. They don't really understand these new business models that they need to be thinking about. So it's wonderful to see that growth in mindset from them. And these people are going to be, again, they're leaders of the future. So they're going to be going into big organizations. They're going to be working, setting up their own business or working for consultancy. And for us, it's like, how can we bring that knowledge and just kind of plant those seeds in various different organizations? We've also been training our staff on the circular economy, and we're launching next week, actually, a community of practice at the university, where we're going to be looking at rolling out circular projects across the campuses. We've got representatives from our procurement function, from our facilities function, from our commercial teams, and really seeing where we can, again, this collaboration piece, where we can all work together and look at opportunities to embed circularity in different areas within the university, but then also bring in the students and hopefully, hopefully what we'd like to be able to do is to take these projects and embed them as core parts of modules moving forward. So we get student input as well, student engagement. So they get experience of working in a real life project that's happening on the ground that could have a massive impact on the university in the longer term.
That's amazing. And I love the idea of the challenge, because circular economy it's quite an entrepreneurial space, right? Isn't it? It's about testing the norm and testing new ideas.
It really is. Yeah, you've got to be innovative. You've got to be able to kind of like think outside the box. And we're really, we're used to this linear economy of take, make, use, dispose. That's what we're used to. But actually, it's so much more than that. If we can really focus on new business models, how can we actually embed reuse? How can we embed remanufacture? How can we think about end of life and disposal and it not actually ending up in the ground? That's really exciting, and I think it opens up a lot of opportunity for people who can think outside of the box to actually get really excited and make a massive difference.
Yeah, that's amazing. And certainly, speaking with my Circular Economy Institute hat on, we'd love to support you in that, Sarah. So yeah, I look forward to watching this space and hopefully getting involved as part of the CEI.
Yeah, that would be great.
In the coming months. Okay, so we've talked a lot about change and the change we need from a policy level, from a people level, from a skill level. If I'll pick Sarah first. If you had just a few minutes with a policymaker, what would be the one thing you would be asking for in terms of policy change?
Oh, one thing. One thing that I would ask for. I would say we need to line up policy, education and funding in a way that's strategic and not just tactical. So really engage with us. let's kind of like have the conversation, what is needed from an educational perspective, what is needed from a funding perspective, not just roll out policy for policy's sake. Let's have a joined up approach and work together on this.
Absolutely. And so often one policy is pulling against another, isn't it? And it's that, let's all departments of government come together to understand how can we make sure that the drivers that we're putting in place are pushing the right behaviours in the right places at the right time. Yeah, absolutely. Love that. Bonnie, it's your turn. If you've had just a couple of minutes with a policymaker, what would you ask for?
Yeah, I think the main thing at the moment is the kind of the funding that's needed to put in place the changes that are going to be on the horizon, and making sure that it all lines up, and is also consistent as well, across local authorities, and as well as, you know, simply recycling. It's the funding needed for the infrastructure and the recruitment as well. So as we're talking about skills, there will need to be more boots on the ground to deliver those services, from a separate food waste collection to that kind of keeping up the behavior change, and engagement. So that I think that would be mainly it, and probably in terms of other campaigns as well, in terms of, you know, fly tipping and littering. In terms of at the moment, I think there needs to be more sort of monitoring and enforcement in that regard as well, because there's a lot of it going on, and there is some good work being done by some local authorities, but the huge cost that clearing that up takes is often a lot more than the fine itself. So is that so?
Absolutely, and detracts, of course, from the economy. I think all of these things that both of you are asking for, the business case stacks up, doesn't it? I mean, we have a government whose primary mission is growth, and we're talking about growth, but in a way that doesn't damage the planet. So hugely exciting. Okay, so on that same, I'll go with you first this time, Bonnie. On that same sort of style, what would you say? So my daughter is 17, so she's currently starting to look at universities, she's starting to look at courses, she's starting to decide what the rest of her sort of future looks like. What would you say to young people like Lily, to try and encourage them to consider this as a place for them?
Yeah, I think it's the main thing is the opportunity and the chance to make a real difference, real tangible difference in terms of your local community, if it's obviously working in local government, and in terms of wider waste and resources, making a real difference in terms of this is stuff that you would think is thrown away, but you're stopping it from going to waste, and that it'll be back into the chain, whether it's reused or repaired, or going back to manufacturing new products. And there's nothing more rewarding than being able to know that, and that knowing that you're making a real difference. I think we've also talked a lot about obviously higher education and universities. I think we need to mention apprenticeships as well, and I think we are seeing a lot of authorities doing some good work. At APSI, we have apprentice awards every year, where we reward the apprentices that are going through local authorities in various, you know, frontline services that are doing a good job, because sometimes university isn't for everyone, and I think sometimes that can be pushed too much in some cases. But apprenticeships are a real opportunity. There are also degree apprenticeships as well, which I think is a really good idea. But in terms of apprenticeships, there's many varieties, as well as sort of skilled jobs and upskilling in terms of practical skills in all the supporting services like business support and administration, leading to project management. There are also apprenticeships in those areas, which every council, every business needs as well to administer, because they're the people that keep everything running. And so I think in terms of skills for the future, and the current recruitment challenge and the retention challenge within the sector, is showing people that they've got somewhere to go next, that there is a progression where you can start at the front line, and then if you're really good at something, you could be redeployed to a desk-based role where you could thrive and become sort of go into project management, or stay at the front line, become a team lead, and showing that kind of progression that helps to keep people stay in the sector and not leave.
I agree
Absolutely.
with you.
And you're so right in terms of recognising horses for courses. And I think it's a really important role for us as a professional body, and for your group, actually, Bonnie, as an early careers team, to help people understand the career opportunities and the very many paths that can lead you to success in this sector. That's fantastic. Thanks, Bonnie. Sarah, what would you say?
Yeah, I was going to say I agree with Bonnie 100%. And from my perspective, I would say kind of like we should really celebrate circularity as a jobs creator. It's a systems change driver, and it's an innovation space, and it's really exciting. And as Bonnie said, you know, you can transition your career in this space actually by having this understanding of where things are going in the future and the needs. It's needed across every single role within a sector, within a company that's going to be moving forward. It's not a waste of effort. It's actually a really exciting space for which you to for young people to actually to navigate and to think about being innovators, you know, come up with these fantastic new ideas. How can we collaborate across sectors, across industries? How can we use large language models to actually help us to create cleaner, greener, better futures? I would say choose this as a role and actually open up your future to the endless possibility.
Amazing. What lovely sentiment, and I could not agree more. And actually, one of the things that I notice often when I'm speaking on behalf of CIWM, I'll ask the audience who decided at school or at college or at university that they wanted to work in the waste and resource management sector, particularly when I'm talking to CIWM. And I will always have one or two, but it's fair to say that, you know, in a room full of 50, that's all there'll be. And then I like to follow it up with, and who, since they've entered this sector, would consider working anywhere else? And no one would. You know, we're a sector we're very, very good at retaining people. We have to crack the recruitment piece, and we have to do it recognizing that lots of other sectors are also looking to transition and are looking for those people coming in. But we are very good at retention because it's just such a purposeful role, isn't it? Amazing. Well, I think we've discussed so much there. I think I'll probably draw us to a close there, and thank you both so much for your time, and thank you to the listeners for joining us. We've had such an interesting discussion. We hope we've been able to share some new insights with you all. For more information on upcoming episodes or becoming a member of CIWM or CEI, please visit the websites or reach out to the team. And if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to listen back to the latest episodes of the podcast, where we discussed a vision for the future, covering resources, waste, materials, and a circular economy with CIWM's president, Dr. David Greenfield, and Tech Meets Trash with Amrish Mitra, co-founder of Grey Parrot. See you next time for more rubbish talk.